Hey, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this installment of Return to Base. I'm your host, Cliff. Today's guest is somebody who I'm very excited about, somebody who has an absolutely amazing story. I actually had a chance to serve with him a long, long time ago in Afghanistan, and very excited to announce today's guest is Nate Boyer. Nate Boyer is in addition to being a Green Beret and a veteran, he was a walk-on long snapper at the University of Texas. And from there, he actually signed as an undrafted free agent by the Seattle Seahawks in 2015. I got to pause there. This is something pretty incredible. Think about this. He was a Green Beret first and then went off to college to the University of Texas, walked on, by the way, as a long snapper at the University of Texas, having never played a single down of organized football ever, not in Pop Warner, not in high school, shows up at a Division I school with the audacity to say, hey, I want to make this team. And he did. Rest is history. In addition to that, he's been a fisherman part of his life. He's been an actor. He is an actor, actually. He's an actor, producer, director, a philanthropist. He co-founded an organization called Merging Vets and Players, something that we'll get a chance to talk to him about, I'm sure. And above all else, he's just a really good human being, a really good American, and we're proud to have him on this episode of Return to Base. So stay tuned, and if you hadn't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button to get more content like this. So stay tuned. Here we go. Bravo Zulu, this is Victor Lima. We are RTB. This is Return to Base, a Veteran Life podcast. All right. Got a good guest today, Nate Boyer, former Green Beret, NFL, undrafted free agent in 2015 by the Seattle Seahawks. How's it going, Nate?
It's pretty good. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks. Thanks for asking. We got a lot to cover, obviously. You've had an interesting life. Some might say you're a bit of a Renaissance man. I kind of liken it a little bit to Forrest Gump. No offense, just kind of running around doing everything, man. Kind of in the, kind of the pop culture, if you will, or doing a little bit of everything in this century here, right?
Yeah. I don't know about everything, but trying to do the things that I'm into, or at least attempt them. And
yeah. I'll tell you what, you've done more than most people, that's for sure. If look at your resume, we brought it up during the intro, but obviously you have a very impressive resume, and one can probably say that you've lived a pretty full life. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a matter of perspective. It's like the only life you really understand is your own. Right. So for me, it feels kind of normal. And of course, like, I don't know about of course, but to me, it feels like I haven't done that much, or I put maybe too much time into things and that I don't really care about, and wish I would have put more time into other things. But I think that's probably standard with everybody. I bet everybody's got those type of, I don't want to say regrets, but regrets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And you mentioned something that I always like to tell people when committing to things is time is my only resource I can't really renew. So I'm pretty protective of my time, and I know you're protective of your time. And so I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. But your point there being that the time that you have had to spend on this world, you maybe could have did some things a little bit differently. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I often feel like that I just, wasted a bit of time doing something that I wasn't really set on, more earlier in life. It's probably because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But at the same time, like, I have to understand that because I spun my wheels for a bit, I think it got me to a place of frustration and asking a lot of questions. And that's probably what spurred the action that was taken after that. So, you know, it's one of those things, like, it's the catch-22, I think.
Right.
But, it's hard to always recognize it. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm 40 years old now. It's like, as you know, life keeps going, you're like, oh man, I never did that thing. And I wish I was doing this thing right now. And I'm also not, slowing down and enjoying my life at all. And, you know, I mean, it's like they're definitely first world problems, like all those things, but,
well, you would know, right? So for those listening who don't know, I mean, you visited the third world obviously during combat, but also before your time in the military. Is that right? Yeah.
In 2004, was my first time going to a place like that. I went to the Darfur along the border of Chad and Sudan.
What led you to do that?
Well, honestly, it was a Time magazine article. I was 23 years old at the time. You know, 9/11 happened when I was like 19, 20. 9/11 happened when I was 20. And I thought about joining the military at the time, but, you know, it just didn't quite feel right. I didn't know what I would do exactly. And I mean, none of us were aware that this was going to be a long war, not to mention a 20-year war, but,
that's right.
So I remember thinking of that when I was younger. I was like, well, I'd only really probably join the military if we were at war, and it was something pretty, you know, pretty big, pretty involved. And so I didn't do that. But I did a lot of other things that, when I talk about the wasting of time, where I just felt like
18 to 23. What were you up to, man? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Not going to college. I'll tell you that much. But, yeah. And so I remember just reading this article, and it was like, just like hit me, the images, they just struck me in a certain way. And I was like, man, I got to go over there and help. And it was like, I mean, the title of the Time magazine article was "The Tragedy in Sudan." And it was, it was just these people that are, you know, in the midst of a genocide. 300,000 people had been killed by the time I read that article. And it was mostly women and children that were sort of left, abandoned and ended up in refugee camps, and they were understaffed and they just needed help. They needed people. And so I just made the decision, even though I was not qualified at all. And
through the Peace Corps?
No, I actually didn't. I couldn't go with any organization. They wouldn't let me because I didn't have a college degree and I didn't have any special skills or anything. So I just flew myself over there and like figured it out when I got there. Yeah, it was really stupid, but,
wow, man. So you just show up in Sudan and you, I imagine you went to maybe the rental car place or somewhere. Hey, point me to where all the bad stuff is happening and see if I go help.
Yeah, wow. I picked up a Ford Focus at Enterprise Rent a Car and just threw it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, there was, not a lot of English spoken.
Right.
In the capital, Jamena is the name of the capital of Chad, is where I flew into. That's about the only place you could fly into anywhere near the Darfur. And I talked my way onto a UN flight, kind of BS my way on this UNHCR, United Nations High Commission for Refugees, little prop plane. They had an open seat. I just kind of BS'd my way on it and flew across the Sahara to the Darfur. And, once I got there, I talked my way into a volunteer opportunity. I mean, I wasn't asking for anything, including food or being put up. You know, I was like, I just want to help. And so I ended up sleeping. I kind of slept how the refugees slept. I just slept on the ground, you know, and not even really under a tent. It was like this back of this like extended compound. And, but I assisted every day with, you know, in the medical centers. I played soccer with the kids. I helped build some of the you know, the campsites and stuff like that. And, was just a grunt as far as the, refugee camp world goes.
Wow.
But it just, you know, completely changed my life and perspective on things. And, it really made me, my patriotism was sort of gained over there. So many people were just enamored with America. They just wanted to talk about America and hear about my stories. And like, why would I leave that to come over here and help? And, you know, I just made the decision when I was there that I was going to join the military. So,
did you become the 18 Delta? Is that right? A special forces medical sergeant?
Echo.
Oh, you're an Echo.
Commo guy. Yeah.
Should have known that.
I didn't sign up for that. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be a Charlie, but I think Echo was what they gave me because they needed Echoes at the time. I scored pretty well on some of the tests, you know, right. I guess that would qualify me better as an Echo, which is a commo guy for those that don't know. But it wasn't super into it, and I didn't know anything about it, man. I didn't even have an email address when I joined the military, so it was all very new to me, you know.
So you're in Darfur, and you're thinking, did you run into some special forces guys in Africa? And
no, there was no American military anywhere near where I was at all. They had some like UN soldiers, but maybe French Foreign Legion was there as well, but not no American. Well, I don't want to say no, none that I saw.
Right,
probably was somewhere.
Did you consider joining the French Foreign Legion?
No, I didn't. I didn't even know what I was going to do exactly coming back. I just knew it had to be something like that. Like these people, I just felt like were worth fighting for. And I got malaria the last week I was there.
Oh, good.
And yeah, so that was super fun. But the family that put me up and like took care of me, they put a little radio in the room I was staying in. The only station that came on the radio was the BBC. And the Second Battle of Fallujah was happening at that time.
Right.
I think that's November. It's October or November of 2004. I think November. And I'm like listening to the play-by-play of these guys, mostly Marines, going in and, risking their lives and fighting for these people. And, I just thought, man, that's what I'm going to do next. I want to join the military. So I came home, went to the Marine Corps recruiting office, didn't get a great vibe from that. And also wasn't sure if that made sense. That was the right fit. And then, I came across this other magazine article that talked about the 18 X-ray programs. I think it was also a Time magazine, honestly. But it was, I was like getting my oil changed at a dealership, and just very kind of sitting there in the dealership. I remember it pretty clear, probably because that's where I read that article, but I just remember it being I'm back to the real world, the hum of the lights inside an empty waiting room. And, I just reading about how you could come in off the street and
sounds like you were just drawn at that point to service. You knew you had to serve, it sounds like, and you had this inclination spurred on by maybe a renewed patriotism as to how the rest of the world sees the United States of America. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was proud of a lot of the, honestly, after 9/11, I just remember, 9/12, and I lived in LA at the time, and it was people were marching in the streets, parading, dressed as Uncle Sam and stuff like that. And it was just kind of something we don't, it'd almost be, if we saw that today, people would
freak out.
It was extremist group.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Isn't that wild when you think about that?
It's very wild. It's very wild. But it was, it was just like, we were very united. Really came together. And then I remember, like George Bush throwing the first pitch at the World Series, right. In the I guess it was in Yankee Stadium, and it's just like all those kind of things. It's just like, dang, this is crazy. This is like, really proud of this. Like, I don't know. It was just interesting.
I was after 9/11 or during 9/11, actually. I was stationed in Germany at the time, so it was an interesting feeling. Germans were leaving flowers at our base, which was far from any type of danger.
Yeah.
But, and I remember that speech he gave, George W. Bush, at the Ground Zero, where those firemen said, "Hey, we can't hear you." And then, of course, he said, "I can hear you, and pretty soon the people who knock down these buildings are going to hear from all of us." That was like,
right.
Yeah, that was a real proud moment. And then, of course, I know you're a big baseball fan, so am I. So that whole first pitch, I'm sure you've seen the 30 for 30 about it. I think it's a 30 for 30 about the first pitch where Jeter says, "Don't bounce it."
Yeah, exactly. They always say that. I got to throw a first pitch out of it was a spring training game for the Mariners, but yeah, same thing. They were like the main thing. They're like, aim high. So like if you miss high and the catcher has to come up, like no big deal. Just don't bounce it, So I was like staring at the top of the catcher's mask, and I was like, all right, I'm if I miss high, if I throw it over his head, that's fine.
Did you throw it from the rubber?
Oh yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you got to do it.
Oh, dude, I did the full windup. I threw it as hard as I could. I mean, it probably went like 65 miles an hour, but like, I threw it as hard as I could. I wasn't messing around.
Yeah. So you become a Green Beret, and for the listeners, Nate and I actually served together in Afghanistan, and I don't know, I guess it has to be 2013 or 14. Long time ago.
13.
2013.
Yep. And
didn't get to know each other too well. I was kind of all over the place, as were you, doing different things. By the way, I was at 18 Echo as well.
Nice.
Right before I got promoted to EA. But that experience. What did you think about your time in Afghanistan? That wasn't your only time in Afghanistan, correct?
No. I went to, actually just went to Afghanistan that year, and I went the next year. I was at Camp Moorhead with third group, and she got attached to an ODA. But I was in Iraq before that when I was in 10th group on active duty.
Yeah. Both places, special place in my heart for both. Big shout out to Iraq. I spent a lot of time in Iraq. Whereabouts in Iraq, and how do you find those trips while working on an ODA and just those deployments, especially knowing now that Afghanistan's done and Iraq is kind of, always in a state of mess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to see, man. I mean, I was in Iraq. We operated mostly out of Najaf. That's where our team house was, which is, south of Baghdad. It's right where the Tigris and Euphrates sort of converge, and it's near, Babel,
right?
Or as we know, it's Babylon. And Najaf was the Shiite holy city, which has the biggest cemetery in the world. So it's like a lot of religious significance for all religions, or all major ones, I should say, Judaism,
Abrahamic,
Christianity, and yeah, exactly, and Islam. But Father Abraham's buried there, and many others, probably millions of others.
That is a huge cemetery.
It's enormous.
To think of the battles that went on in that cemetery in 2000, early or late 2000s.
There was a big one in 2007, right before we got there with the Marines. I think 4 Marines were killed. And yeah, our ODA, we never got in a firefight in the cemetery, but I just remember, we spent a lot of time around there, and but it was very bizarre. To see something like that, because Najaf is a city, but it's nothing like a city in North America or the West generally. It's very desolate. You're in the desert, and even that sort of downtown, everything's sort of sand colored. all the buildings, very dusty. There's a lot of like windstorms, and it's not like so a lot of Iraq is very different. That in some ways it was almost like more like southern Afghanistan. The topography and everything. So, but it was like we were very far from everyone else. I mean, there was a nearby like sort of supply base, but we were far from the flagpole. I don't know, the closest ODA to us was in Hilla, which I think that was at least an hour drive, if not more. I can't remember.
What year was that?
This is in 2008, 2009.
Oh, yeah. I 2009. I was out east at Kut.
Oh yeah.
In 2010.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, same. Like Baghdad, big city, still on the outskirts, sandcastles. Najaf, even worse. Kut. I mean, you can just see across. There's no real big buildings. But yeah, and then Afghanistan. Obviously, it sounds like you've been a fair amount of places in Afghanistan, and it's weird to see kind of, I don't know, you could say our legacy, our generation's legacy, kind of in question in some ways, especially with Afghanistan falling the way it did, and then obviously Iraq had the ISIS uprising and stuff.
Right. Yeah, no, it's sad. It's frustrating, but it's not really an easy answer there. So,
right. Yeah. Those folks have been at war a long time, man. I don't know if we thought we could change that. But for all the people there on the ground, the families and children.
Yeah, that's the worst part, man. It's like that's what people don't quite understand. I think you can't really until you're there. But I mean, I guess you can at some level, but just I think people just don't believe it. That the amount of oppression that exists over there, and like how women and children are treated, and just that the class system, and obviously things are not perfect here in the States.
Right,
things are not completely equal for everybody, but like it's just a completely different level of that, and
it's quite a perspective when you look at it. I did several deployments to Iraq and just one to Afghanistan, but more or less, people are people everywhere, where there's just folks a lot of times trying to get by. Sometimes even the people whose houses I've been into, you realize this is just a guy trying to provide for his family.
Right.
And put yourself in that same situation. You might do the same thing. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
But what? One thing that really tripped me out was the families seem to sleep in the first room of a house during, I guess the fall. And we would always come in to, bad guy's house and just so afraid that I was going to step on a baby's arm or something like that. And I'm there to do a job. And I was also always concerned that, oh man, I don't want to step on a kid's foot or something. Some baby's sleeping and wake them up. But yeah. So when we served together, I remember somebody telling me, like, hey, you should go talk to Nate, man. He's got an interesting story. And then found out, of course, that you on your free time, you were a long snapper for the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a crazy thing.
No, you got it backwards. My free time, I was.
That's right.
In a National Guard,
Yeah. That's right. Now, I mean, that is such a strange turn of events where you were in the Darfur. Before that, you worked on a fishing boat, decided to join the Army, decided to go into the National Guard, and then, I don't know, on a whim, you were like, you know what? I bet I can snap this football 20 yards.
Well, I growing up, I was always just a huge football fan. And, when I was, a little kid, I played soccer and baseball and basketball. And then, when I became interested in playing football, at first, my mom wasn't thrilled about it just because it's, it's a violent sport. And I was pretty young when I first was sort of into it. And so she sort of steered me away from it. And then I just got so hooked on, especially baseball and basketball. I was like really into it. And then by the time I got to high school, it was like, man, I gotta focus on these sports if I want a chance to start and play. Like I'm not a good enough athlete to just play four sports or whatever in high school. So I, never played, and it like kind of bothered me. It was like a regret I had for my whole life till I was 29. I decided to go back to college.
29 year on redshirt freshman.
Yeah. So I was actually finishing up that deployment in Iraq in 2009. I was 28 at the time then. And I kind of just made the decision that I wasn't going to re-enlist on active duty. I was a year out, and so I was up for the re-enlistment. I said, no, I'm just going to go to college and go try to play football, and ended up going to UT. And, after my first semester there, I re-enlisted into the National Guard because I wanted to keep serving. And, that first summer I had at school, I was bored to tears. And I was like, man, I need to do something over the summer here. So, so I walked on as a safety, and I made the team, and I was on the scout team, and I was dressed for home games, and got to run down on kickoff coverage during the Veterans Day game and all that stuff. But it was like, I want to play like meaningful snaps. I want to find a way on the field. What's something that I can learn that's sort of a specialized skill that I don't necessarily have to have played football my whole life. Right. And long snapping kind of made the most sense. I mean, it's a thankless job, and it's like shooting a free throw in the sense of it's the same every time. It's kind of a closed skill like that, but it's not easy. I mean, you're hiking a ball through your legs 15 yards. It's got to be on a line, a spiral, and very accurate.
You're about to get hit.
Yeah, then you're about to get hit as soon as you do it. Exactly. And if you screw up,
Belichick talk about it recently.
Oh, really?
For 20 minutes. Well, some reporter asked, hey, do you think we need to, do you think you guys need a long snapper on the Patriots, or can you do without? And he went into like a 15-minute explanation and history of the long snapper. That's
a very dumb question by the media there.
Well, the media is not all that bright.
Yeah, right. I mean, every NFL team has one. They have no backup, but they have one long snapper, and that's all that person does: punts, field goals, extra points. And they don't play anything else. They're not like, but usually the backup for the long snapper in case he gets hurt is like, a reserve tight end or a linebacker or something like that. But yeah, it's just, that's what that is. And
so what was that like? So, all of a sudden you're lined up against, I don't know, 250, 300 pound, mountain of man ready to hit you in your face as soon as you lose that ball.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely nerve-wracking, but it's also just football, and it's not that big a deal. I think the time in the military definitely helped me settle into those moments. And
nobody's shooting at you.
Nobody's shooting at you. That was the first thing Mac told me. So my very first game that I played in, that I started in, was my sophomore year. It was after week one. I'd won the starting job in practice because week one, they recruited this kid to come in and be the long snapper, and he kind of had he didn't have a great game. I mean, there's 100,000 fans in the stadium. There's a lot that goes into it. So skill only takes you so far. And, he gave me a shot, and the very first snap I go out there, and I was nervous, man. And it was kind of a wobbly snap on an extra point. And, the holder got it and put it down, and they kicked it through. But it was probably the worst snap of my career, to be honest, at least on field goals and extra points. And I knew I screwed it up, man. I come over the sideline, and Mac just grabs me. He's like, "Hey," I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Nobody's shooting at you, relax." And I was like, "All right, yeah."
That probably meant a lot, huh?
No, it did. And then I go over to the sideline, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's such a good point, man. Just like, what are you doing? Just relax." And
who are you talking about here? Are you talking about Matthew McConaughey?
No, Mac Brown. Mac Brown.
Okay.
The head coach.
Okay. And I know that McConaughey.
He's on the sideline quite a bit now, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
That'd been funnier. That would almost been a funnier story. Like, hey, man, nobody's shooting at you, but it'd be a lot cooler if they were.
Yeah, exactly. That would be what he said. What he would say.
Yeah. I know we're running up on time here, but I kind of want to get through just a couple more things, if that's all right.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, you've had such an interesting life. It's hard to wrap it into such a small format, but not drafted, but signed by the Seattle Seahawks. Did you have any inclination that this was going to happen?
No, not by the Seahawks specifically, but I remember, thinking after my senior year, like, this is probably it. This is probably my last game. We lost the bowl game to Arkansas pretty bad. And, didn't play great. And it was a little like bittersweet. It's like, I wish we, even if we lost the game, I wish we would have played better. It would have been some kind of an epic finale to my career. And it really wasn't. And then I got asked to play in the senior all-star game in Charleston called the Medal of Honor Bowl. And, it doesn't even exist anymore, but every year they've got about 3 or 4 senior all-star games. They've always got the Reese's Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine game and the NFL PA Bowl. And then the 4th one is kind of a rotating one that at different places. And this one was like sponsored by the Medal of Honor Society. And that's probably why they called me straight up, because it was like, well, we want to have a veteran in the game,
Right.
And so.
Not a whole lot of them in
No, there was one other when I was playing, one other that I knew of, one other veteran in college football, and that's it. And so I go down to Charleston. During the week of practices, they've got like all these NFL scouts there. And, I just didn't realize that was a thing. Most of the guys that were in this game were at best middle round draft picks, and a lot of them were, undrafted types like myself.
Right.
And, so I go down, during the practices, like, they had, during that week of practices, I should say, they had time set aside for interviews. And teams would sit down with you and talk to you and whatnot. And I had 4 different teams sit with me and express interest. None of them were the Seahawks, but it was like the Dolphins, the Bears, the Cardinals.
Are you thinking still
Browns,
this is a long shot
like that? Oh yeah. I definitely think this is definitely a long
they're just
shot.
going through the motion, man. They're here. They might as well interview somebody. Is that what you were thinking?
I mean, initially, but a couple of them were like they were like, you need to put some weight on, but you're a good snapper. You should go for it.
Wow.
And so I was like, all right. So I did. I put on like 30 pounds over the next four months. It wasn't all good weight, but it was necessary to even get considered, cause in college, I played at like between 185 and 195. I was not big.
Yeah.
And that's like my fighting weight though. That's like how, that's what I feel good at, and, I mean, right now I'm like 175 and I feel great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, at that time, I got all the way up to 225. when I was prepping, and I did pro day and I had a good pro day out at Texas, like just, ran the 40 and did the bench press and did the, long snaps for the coaches and all that. And then draft day rolls around and my agent's talking to a few different teams, and, I ended up talking to, or getting a call from the St. Louis Rams, first, and then, the Seattle Seahawks, and both teams were interested in signing me as a free agent, like as soon as the draft was over. And so I kind of had to make a decision there. I had about 30 minutes to choose. And,
wow.
The Seahawks had been to back-to-back Super Bowls. They won in 13, lost in 14. And, it was Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch and Richard Sherman and, Doug Baldwin and Bobby Wagner and Michael Bennett. Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, just on and on and on, just studs. Jimmy Graham just got acquired. And, I just was like, man, this is a no-brainer. Like, I gotta go to the Seahawks. The Rams were struggling, I think they won like 4 games the year before. And I knew I probably had a better shot of making it in St. Louis, but I just couldn't turn down that opportunity to play in Seattle.
Yeah.
And so I went out, Pete Carroll called and I answered and said that I was down. I wanted to sign with the Seahawks. And so I signed as a free agent. I'm at 34 years old.
Wow. What a freaking inspiration story that is. I remember watching it on TV and thinking, oh my God, I know that guy. and super proud of what you accomplished there. Just even getting a call from an NFL team, that's a big deal. But how'd everybody treat you in the locker room? Were they kind of like,
oh, they're great. They're great. I was a rookie, but I was also the oldest guy on the team, which was pretty funny.
Yeah. Did you have a nickname?
No, I did in college. I had several, from old man to grandpa to Sarge to whatever, but not really there. Nah. It's a little different, NFL locker room versus college, but the Seattle, I would say Seattle's got that, definitely got that collegey vibe more than anything else.
Yeah.
So.
And plus, cool thing is, right down the road, First Special Forces Group. I know that they do a lot with First Group.
Good buddy of mine, who's still a good buddy, named Ed Hall. I became close with. He's a First Group guy, and he just retired as a sergeant major last year, and so he's a stud. And we stay in touch now. But I was actually drafted by First Group first. Drafted, silly word, but I went to, that was the first, I didn't go to Fort Lewis, so I was sent to Okinawa. They have a battalion out in Japan, and that's where I was. But, I started at First Group and then kind of ended up out there too with the Seahawks.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story, especially like coming back home in some sense. Obviously you were in Okinawa, but, I don't know if you ever made it out to the Menton Ball. So
not yet. Ed's talked about it before, but
you gotta go. I served in First Group before I went to the Q course for like a year.
That's cool.
And my brother actually is also.
Well, the other group I spent time on active duty with. The one I deployed with was 10th Group out of Fort Carson. And, the irony there is that the one preseason game I played in, it was, we played the Broncos. So,
The universe is weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's strange. And they went on to win the Super Bowl that year, the Broncos, and Peyton Manning was the quarterback. And so I'm like warming up in pregame, and up in Seattle. It was a home game at CenturyLink, and I'm like snapping footballs now, like kind of just stand up for a second, try to take it in, like turn to my right, and Peyton Manning's like throwing routes to the receivers. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing here? This is crazy.
Hall of Famer right there, man. And you got to play with a bunch of future Hall of Famers as well. Hopefully. So let's fast forward a little bit here. So staying on the NFL, and obviously you were, I don't know, for lack of a better word, kind of conscripted into a bit of the social justice movement, through standing up and being a friend to somebody who probably needed one at the time, and obviously a controversial figure in Colin Kaepernick, right?
Yeah.
Sat down, notoriously or famously sat on the bench instead of standing for the national anthem as a protest for police violence. And as the story goes, you convinced him to take a knee because it's more respectful than sitting on your backside. And walk me through how that changed your life.
Well, it was a year after I was in Seattle, and the one game I got to play in, when I stood on the sidelines and the anthem played, like, I got super emotional. And I understand that a lot of that's because of my connection to the flag and the anthem. Those symbols mean something different to me. But it was just, it was something that, I'll definitely never forget. Moment I took pride in, and a year later, I see Colin sitting on the bench and during the anthem. And at the time, initially, at least, it just hurt me. It wasn't anything. I was a big Niner fan growing up. I'm from the Bay. And, I was like, man, this is like one of my heroes. But then I listened to why he was doing it. I listened to an interview he'd done about, in the locker room shortly after, and saying why he wasn't going to stand for the flag of a country that oppresses Black people and people of color. And I didn't feel like obviously that's not the intent of the flag, but it's also like not what my experience kind of, understood. Like I get that, that we're absolutely, equality does not fully exist yet. And like, there's a lot to work towards, and we need to improve in so many ways. And, but maybe this was a bit of a wake up call for all those things. And, so I wrote this open letter because I kept getting hit up by everybody from the media world about weighing in on this subject, I guess, because I played football and I was in the military. It makes me a subject matter expert, but, which it doesn't. And, I agreed to write an open letter through the Army Times, and I did it, and just kind of explained my relationship to those things and why I feel the way that I feel. And I talked about my trip to the Darfur, and I talked about, serving in the military and spending time in places where there is a sort of a different type of oppression and or a different level of it, I guess. And, but also I was like, at the same time, like I only know about my experience. Like, for me to pretend that I know what it's like to be or go through what you've experienced, like that's pretty ignorant. And, Colin read it and was actually inspired by it and reached out to me and wanted to meet. So he asked if I could come down to San Diego. They were playing the Chargers in the final preseason game that year. And I did. I went down there. I met with him in the lobby of the team hotel. We talked about all kinds of stuff, and sort of the end of the conversation, after we really got to know each other and kind of knew where each other stood and kind of developed that respect and mutual respect. He asked if there was another way that he could protest that wouldn't offend people in the military, because that was not his intent in any way.
Right.
And I told him, no, there's nothing you can do that's not going to offend some people.
That's true.
But, if you're asking my opinion, I think the least inspiring part of what you're doing is that you're not alongside your teammates. You're sort of isolated on your own. And, he agreed that would be better if you be alongside his guys, even if they don't all agree with him. Like, as soon as the anthem's over, the game starts and they go out on the field and, they got to work together.
Right.
Even though they maybe disagree on some things. And so, I said, if you're alongside your teammates and you're committed to not standing, the only other option that I think makes sense is taking a knee. And I think that's a pretty respectful gesture, throughout history. And, if you're willing to do that, I'm willing to stand next to you. And he asked if I would kneel with him. And I told him, no, I wouldn't. Like, I don't want to do that. But I'll support your decision to make that adjustment. And, he thought he agreed. I mean, he thought that was cool. He appreciated me, willing to kind of be with him on it and support him in that way. And, it didn't necessarily meant I supported everything that Colin said and did, but it's I'm at least willing to have a conversation and try to figure out a solution together. Like we should do, in my opinion, we should do with everything in the country.
Yeah. Were you surprised by the reaction, both positive and negative?
Yeah. I mean, right off the gate, man, when he took the knee, for instance, in the stadium, there was like a lot of booing. And this is on Military Appreciation Night. Like they had a flyover with like SEALs jumping in the stadium, and
San Diego's a military town too.
It's a military town, yeah. It was right around the 15th anniversary of 9/11 as well.
That's right. So,
yeah, it was pretty bizarre, to be completely honest, but yeah, I mean,
that no doubt changed your life, I'm sure. Small things change your trajectory in some sense.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
But, and I guess that led to eventually, to you co-founding Merging Vets and Players, right?
Yeah, we already actually started it. We founded MVP in, December of 2015. But yeah, we bring together combat vets and former professional athletes and help them find purpose and identity and, a team again when the uniform comes off.
And it's so important, that identity. You're right.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if anybody wants to check out more about that, it's vetsandplayers.org is a website. And, we've got chapters in 7 cities now. And we've also got, a couple of Zoom options every week. And what we do when we meet up is we'll train for about 30 to 40 minutes and, just get a good sweat going. It's something that everybody can participate in. If you are a combat vet or a former pro athlete, you're able to become a member.
Right.
And then afterwards we just talk about our shit, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And just like, it can be good stuff too. It's just it's not all negative, but it's just, sort of that community support group, peer to peer. And just like a locker room, man, it's, we give each other crap, but at the same time, if we've got crap we need to share and get off our chest, like that's the place to do it.
Yeah. So, we'll make sure that that's in the show notes. And, cool. Again, I know we're going long here and I appreciate you taking the time, but I do want to get to, what are some of the things you're working on? Obviously, you're hitting Hollywood by storm, director, actor, producer, all these things. And you had mentioned prior to recording, a couple of projects that you're working on. And if you don't mind enlightening us, let us know about those.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing is I directed a film, called MVP about it's a narrative too. It's, it's a scripted project with actors and everything. And it's about, a homeless Marine living in a shelter in East Hollywood. And he meets a former NFL player, for sure, out of the league. And they're both kind of going through similar struggles. On paper, they got nothing in common, but once they get to know each other, they realize they're more similar than they never imagined. And they got to navigate the transition together. And it's cool, man. It was great. We had about half veterans on the cast and crew. Every veteran portrayed on screen is played by an actual vet.
Wow.
And Sylvester Stallone put his name on it as an executive producer. And but then we've got like Tony Gonzalez and Michael Strahan and Howie Long.
Those are great dudes right there.
Yeah, Randy Couture, all these guys, Jay Glazer, they're all playing themselves in the film. And it's kind of their real stories that come to life. Tom Arnold has a little cameo in it. And it's great, man. It was something we shot it right in the middle of of lockdown in LA, we figured a way out to make it happen. Made it for nothing, but, yeah, we're working on the distribution plan right now.
Yeah. What's that look like? When do you think, our folks will be able to?
Hard to say. I mean, I think hopefully in early next year, but it's hard to say until you do a deal.
Yeah, I understand. Well, we'll keep the audience abreast. And you had mentioned also you're working on another project. If you want to talk about it, we had talked before the show started here about being baseball fans. And
yeah, just working on a documentary we just started, so that's going to take quite a while to get done. But it's about the 4 pitchers in Major League history to throw 20 strikeouts in a game, which is a pretty incredible feat. And so we're kind of collecting those stories right now on the road and talking to those guys. And yeah, I'm always a big sports fan. I've been one since I was a kid. Baseball was actually my very first love.
Giants fan, you said, right?
Yeah, Giants fan. We had a good year.
Yeah, you did. I'm an NL West fan myself, Padres, and I'm happy about the Giants winning the pennant because that means the Dodgers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, they play tomorrow night though. Big game.
Yeah.
Playing with the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are hot.
Who's pitching?
I would guess Scherzer, but I don't know. I mean, you want to put your best foot forward out there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who's up in that rotation, but that would be my guess.
It doesn't matter. They're full of killers.
Yeah, it's true. True.
Yeah. Well, as always, I kind of like to close with, you're a veteran. You've done quite a bit in your life, to include transitioning from the military into the civilian world. Your story is unique, but I'm sure what's not unique is or at least what's applicable to everybody, not just you, is some advice that you could give veterans getting out of the military, wondering what they're going to do, struggling with their identity. What's something you could relate to our audience about those subjects?
I think the number one thing is to just try things,
Right.
Just try different things. Don't limit yourself. Don't think because you did this that it's only going to translate to kind of a narrow scope. Mm-hmm. You can do freaking anything, man. That's what your skill set has prepared you for in the military, and specifically in someone served in the special forces. In my opinion, I mean, you know how to solve problems. You know how to figure things out, and you don't have to be a subject matter expert on anything, which I don't think I am still. To make it happen, and if it should be whatever you're interested in, whatever, kind of motivates you and, gets you up in the morning, and whatever you're excited about. It can be any field. Like it's an open book, and
right.
Whatever that thing is. And if you don't know what that thing is, that's why I say try things, try different things that you feel like you might be interested in that may kind of move the needle for you. Don't be so hung up on like, oh, I gotta do something that directly relates to my background or my MOS. I mean, that's all BS, man. Like it doesn't matter. And people, because of your background and your story, don't throw your story in people's face or anything like that. But when they ask you, tell them the truth. Tell them what you did, tell them what you were a part of. Cause it does have value. Everybody, go read somebody else's resume, tell me they're not bragging on themselves when you read that resume. You know what I mean? And you can do it in a tasteful way. It doesn't mean, I'm not saying go, just brag about yourself, but like when people ask you, well, who are you? What'd you do? Tell them what you can. I mean, we've all got certain information we don't necessarily need to share, but like, it holds a lot of weight. And so you got to use it. I think it's a disservice to yourself if you don't.
Yeah. It's your story, right?
Exactly.
Keep writing it, man. Well, excuse me. Nate, I appreciate your time. I know that you're a busy man and you got a lot of projects going on, and keep doing positive things, brother. And keep trying new things, right? Who knows? maybe you have a couple more surprises up your sleeve.
And we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I appreciate you joining us, man. Take it easy.
Thanks for having me on, Cliff. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right. So that was pretty cool. Getting to talk to Nate Boyer for as long as we did. He didn't have a whole lot of time scheduled for us, but he was able to stick around a little bit longer, and hope I didn't make him too late to his next appointment. Fantastic conversation. Great talking to Nate. He's just a fantastic and interesting character, really. He's a real human being, of course. He's a Green Beret, a football player, an actor, producer, all these things. And it was really great to hear some of the insight that he had to offer. And really what his message was is try new things. Go out there and don't let anybody tell you no. Just go out there. Do what makes you happy. Have fun with it. If you want to be a long snapper for a football team in a Division I college like the University of Texas, who's going to stop you? You could at least show up, try out. Maybe not you. You're probably too old. But many of our other listeners, sure, go ahead. Go try it. See where it gets you. Very interesting to know that somebody as accomplished, as traveled, as interesting as Nate looks back at his life so far and says, man, I wish I could have done more. Makes you kind of think that what else could I do? What else could you do? Right? So great talking to him. Love the conversation and hope to hear from him again soon, and hope you enjoyed listening to it. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Like us on Instagram, follow us on LinkedIn, all the things. We have more content scheduled. We have a lot of guests coming up, and if nothing else, come visit us at veteranlife.com. And, we have a lot of really good information going up on the site, and can't wait to see you again. Take care, everybody.